live sports on Netflix, and seeing Paul and Tyson and what they're doing at the NFL Christmas, it's the direction it seems like Netflix is going. I'm really excited that we've gotten in early on it all, and what Raw looks like on Netflix will be very different from what it looks like currently, and in a way it's similar as well, but I'm very excited about it.
And I was at the Paul Tyson fight, and if your guys could be anything like that, it'll be really electric.
What'd you think of it?
It was a dog shit fucking fight. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. We were fourth row, like, this is going to be fucking amazing. Yeah. And that undercard was Serrano Taylor, the women.
Oh, such a good fight. Yeah,
was phenomenal. And then that got us even more gassed up. We're like, oh shit, this is going to be fucking nuts. And then we got in there and watched a light sparring match. That was like, what the fuck is this? It was crazy. I know there was like all these conspiracy theories, which is a natural thing that happens, but one thing that, doesn't matter whether you're there or you watch it, is like, it was clear that neither guy pressed that. And like, when you watch boxing, you see people set things up with jabs, and then a jab usually at some moment creates an opening where you attack. It's like the basic fundamentals of boxing. And you would watch that happen. You're like, ooh, like right here. Yeah. And then by the fifth round, you're like, I think they're just going to hang out. Like,
light sparring.
That's exactly what it looked like. Yeah.
My only moments with Mike Tyson, and I will treasure this moment always. He was I think he was just ringside for a match of mine. He was presenting the championship after the match, but he saw other wrestlers backstage. Yeah. And he seemed very, and I don't want to say out of it, because he was the sweetest, wonderful person. It was very nice to talk to him, but he wasn't saying much. And he just kind of seemed to be, I guess, deer in headlights a little bit, and he's watching all these guys oil up, and they're using the bands, and they're pumping up and all that, and he just looked at me, and I'm getting ready to go out. And at the time, I was also in a management position, so I'm directing something, some shot, something. He looked at me and just said, do I need oil? And those are those moments where it's like, it's Mike Tyson. Yeah. I want this relationship to be good. So I'm in my mind thinking, what's he thinking? Does he think he does need the oil? Well, then I said, sure.
Oil up.
And then so he took his shirt off. So now Mike never had to have his shirt off for this. Mike's standing there just looking at me with his shirt off. And I remember he had like no belt on his jeans too. It's just a lot happening. This is the greatest fighter, potentially ever, and someone I really, really like. But he just took the bottle and kind of went like,
you do it.
To me. Yeah. And he put a little in his hands, and he put some on his chest, but then he turned around. Sure. So just oiled him up. And he looked good, and I've put oil on another wrestler before. This wasn't the strangest thing, but the weirdest thing was right after that, he just threw his shirt right back on over it.
No.
And I thought,
that's not the point.
What was the point?
Yeah.
Like are you prepping for you take the shirt? A lot of wrestlers might think at this point I'm going to rip my shirt or whatever, but you're not doing anything like that tonight. And I do think he actually got his shirt off at one point, but I oiled him up. I always felt good about that decision,
dude,
to oil up Mike.
That might be the best story that's ever been told on this podcast.
It's fucking fantastic.
Was Mike Tyson? My favorite fucking story what kind of person would I have been to say?
No, of course.
Mike,
bro. I met him on a flight.
Yeah.
And he was a fucking fan of yours.
Well, it was a peculiar evolution where I had straight up panic about approaching him, because I was like, I was listening to like old guys going like, "Hey, Mike, you remember 1987?" And he was like, "Yeah." Like, just like, I was like, "Oh, don't be like." So I just worked up. It was like, it took like, I actually thought of it as courage, because I was like, don't bother him. But then I was like, this will never happen.
Yeah.
And I gave him, I reached into my bag, and at the time, I had one special out, and I had a DVD, and I gave it to him. And I was like, I'm a comedian.
Yeah.
And then he was like, cool, like, where are you going right now? I was like, we're both going to Pittsburgh. We're on a plane, So, like, that's what we're doing. And he was like, oh, like, where's your show? And I was like, it's at the Improv. And he was like, where's that? And I was like, I don't know, man. That's wherever the Pittsburgh Improv is. Like, I don't know the geography of Pittsburgh. And then he was like, oh, cool. And then he gave me a fist bump, and I was thrilled at the interaction. I was like, I had a moment with Mike Tyson. And then I sat down, and I'm just like, I'm literally like, my heart's racing, right? Because like, I felt like it took a lot just to say something. I was like, I also kind of scared because I didn't know if he was going to be like, bitch, leave me the fuck alone, right? So I was like, ugh. And then I just feel this hand grab my shoulder, and he's standing above me. And he goes, yeah, I know who you are. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And he holds the DVD. He's like, this picture. I was like, yeah, I just gave that to you. And so I was like, and then he leans down in my ear. This is almost like your oil thing. He leans down in my ear, and I'm like, what the fuck's he gonna do? And he leans down. He goes, I've been watching a lot of Netflix. That's it. And then he stands up, and I was like, me too.
What a great.
And he goes, yeah. So he goes, give me your number. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I give him my number, and I'm like, this is it. Like, we land, and I just fucking like run off the plane because I just don't want anything to go wrong.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, that was that. He's not, because I've met so many celebrities who are like, I'll give you a call, or we should do a thing together. And you're like, sure. And so next day, phone rings. It's Mike Tyson.
Wow.
He goes, we're coming to your show tonight. And I go, okay. So I call the club, and I'm like, Mike Tyson's coming to the show.
Yes.
And they're like, sure. Like, they don't believe me. And they're like, I'm like, okay. So then I get to the club. I'm in the green room. There's like 100 people there. It's a Thursday night. And they're like, manager comes in. He's like, dude, Mike Tyson's here. I was like, I know, dude. I told you. And then I can hear him during the show hitting the table. Like, he's hitting the table while he laughs.
Oh, you had him, man.
I had him for a second. And then the show ends, and he grabs me. He's like, let's go to the green room. So he takes me to my green room.
Yeah.
And then he just starts smoking cigarettes. And by his like 5th cigarette, he goes, you got a window? I go, it's a little late for that. It's your 5th fucking cigarette. And he goes, you got one? And I go, no. And he goes, that's when you'll know you've made it. When your green room's got a window. He just hung out for an hour.
Wow.
And then, and I just asked him, and I remember telling him, I was like, yeah, it's crazy, like watching you guys train, like the training videos of those guys. And I just stupidly, I go, like Roy Jones Jr. And he goes, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, why did I say him?
Still he.
I was like, I should say you. Like watching you train.
That's like the hat trick of the celebrity heroic sports figure. Everything went right.
It was incredible.
You got the number, you got wisdom.
Yeah, it was incredible. And he told stories, and like I would throw out names of boxers, and he would be like, that guy's a bitch. And I was like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. That's the dream. I have one more actual Mike Tyson moment that I don't know why I guess I've run into Mike on a couple occasions, but he got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
He did?
He did, yeah. Because he was a big part of WrestleMania in Boston with Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels. It's like the Attitude Era was coming into its own, and Mike was there. He gives Shawn this unbelievable right hook at the end. It's just great stuff. But he got inducted in the Hall of Fame, and I was sitting with my wife, and he started going on about my dad. And my dad had a very large black fan base, very large. And he was talking about how my dad was kind of the first black world champion, even though he was a white man from Austin, Texas, and all this. And he was kind of, he's obviously ribbing on the square here, and he was talking about like blaxploitation and just making these jokes. These are jokes that, as a white person, I feel like I can't have a reaction to these.
Yeah,
I need to just But my wife is black, so she's sitting next to me. So they keep, every time he makes a joke, they kept shooting us. And I was just like, like every time he made a joke and they'd pop on us, I'm like, oh man, please. Like, I would have been gone. I would have left this thing early.
Sure.
Like, gosh, yeah. Mike, man. Mike's the best.
Bert and Tom, Tom and Bert. One goes topless while the other wears a shirt. Tom tells stories and Bert's the machine. There's not a chance in hell that they'll keep it clean. Here's what we call 2 bears, 1 cave.